is there still a risk-free rate after the downgrade of US Treasuries by Standard & Poor's? With me is Dr. Philip Booth, Professor of Insurance and Risk Management at Cass Business School. Philip, is this a one-off event or part of a long-term trend?
Oh, there's been a long-term trend in US government borrowing, which has led both government spending and government borrowing to increase to levels which really are unsustainable. And you can add to the official US government borrowing all the implicit obligations from social security programs, medical programs for the old, pension programs, and so on. And it really does suggest a pretty grim long-term underlying structure, underlying position for the US economy.
There was a political debate, an ideological debate, which led to this standoff, which led to the downgrade. But has there been a mistake here? Because in the end, markets don't care about long-term ideological debates, and the US has shot itself in the foot, hasn't it?
This is one of the problems. In fact, there is this long-term ideological debate between the Republicans on the one hand and the Democrats on the other hand. The Democrats seem quite comfortable with current levels of government spending in the US of around 40% of national income, a level actually, ironically, that a Republican president took the US to, whereas the Republicans would really like to go back to the days when the US government was spending around 30% of national income. And in recent years, this ideological standoff, if you like, has been resolved simply by the US government borrowing more. So taxes have been kept relatively low and spending has been increased. But of course, that is unsustainable. And really, this ideological debate has to be resolved. But this is something that's going to happen over several years and several elections. And what we saw at the beginning of August was an attempt to try to concentrate into a couple of days what are a discussion about what are really very deep divisions, which could be ongoing for years.
If this is a long-term ideological debate, though, should we really be all that concerned about it? I mean, life in America is just going to go on pretty much as it always has, isn't it?
Well, there have been changes in the past in the United States which have fundamentally changed the economy. One of those changes was in the 1930s under FDR, when government regulation and spending increased. Another was in the late 1960s under LBJ, under President Johnson, when a similar thing happened. Then, of course, there was a period of deregulation and tax reduction under Reagan and to quite an extent by Clinton. And the question now really is whether the US is moving towards a more European model of high regulation and high taxation, which would almost inevitably turn the US into a much slower growth economy. And if all these things happen, then the deficit could be a real problem. It will become much more difficult to service US government borrowing if the economy stops growing.
And in a sentence or two, what impact would that have on the economy at large, and in what time frame?
It would have an impact over generations. These things don't necessarily happen quickly, and it would turn the US into a high tax, low growth, high regulation, high government spending economy like many of the European Union economies. And we've seen the long-term impacts that has in terms of the Eurozone crisis.
Dr. Philip Booth, thank you very much.
Thank you.